All right. So do you see Laplace transforms at your end?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, excellent. All right. So we just start with a quick recall of the main results that were discussed in the last lecture. But let's start with the definition first. So given a function f, which is real valued and defined on open interval 0 to infinity, we discussed what is the meaning of the Laplace transform of this function f. So this is a certain improper integral defined as follows. Yeah. So for some parameter s, right? So this is a function, Laplace transform L of f. The output here is a function. What is it? It's a certain improper integral, and the integrand is exponential minus st ft. Right. So please note. The variable of integration here is the variable t, and s is a parameter here. Yeah. So we say that the Laplace transform of the function f is this integral for whenever this integral converges for appropriate values of s, right? Okay. And sometimes one also denotes the Laplace transform of f, so Laplace transform of the little f by the function capital F, right? Okay. And we also discussed this, that if f and g are two continuous functions, then they have the same Laplace transform. Correct? And if so what is that we discussed? This is Lerch's cancellation law, that if two continuous functions f and g have the same Laplace transform, then they better be the same, right? So one can define the inverse of the Laplace transform. This is not always defined, but in some cases, and in those cases one denotes the inverse Laplace transform of the function f by the following. Yeah. So given the function little f, one denotes the Laplace transform of the function little f by capital F, and given the function capital F, one denotes the inverse Laplace transform by L inverse of capital F, and this is ruled by little f, right? Okay. All right. So we already discussed this in the examples that we encountered, that the above improper integral may not converge for every value of s. Okay. All right. So just quickly recall what are the examples that we actually computed last time. We computed the Laplace transform for the constant function 1, turned out to be 1 by s. This is well defined for s bigger than 0. We also computed the Laplace function for exponential at, and this improper integral converges when s is bigger than a, and the Laplace transform turns out to be 1 upon s minus a. We also looked at the Laplace transform of the sine function, sine of at. It turns out that this is a by s square plus a square, and the improper integral here converges when s is bigger than 0, right? Now, Laplace transform of cosine t, Laplace transform of sine hyperbolic at, and Laplace transform of cosine hyperbolic at, these were left for you to work out as homework exercises. But nevertheless, the final result is here. And we also defined the gamma function, and using the gamma function, we could compute the Laplace transform of the function t to power p whenever p is bigger than -1, and it turns out that the Laplace transform of the function t to power p is gamma p plus 1, and in the denominator one has s to power p plus 1. Yeah, and the improper integral here converges when s is bigger than 0. Right? So these were some frequently encountered basic simple functions which for which we computed the Laplace transform last time. Okay, and we also discuss how the Laplace transform of the derivatives of the function f are related in terms of the Laplace transform of the function f, and when is all of this defined. So this is the corollary. Let's just recall the statements. What does this corollary say? This corollary says the following, that suppose that all derivatives of f up to order n minus 1 are continuous on the interval 0a for all a positive, and And suppose that the nth derivative of f is piecewise continuous on the interval 0a for all a positive, right? The next assumption is that all derivatives of f up to order n minus 1 are of exponential order alpha, which means that all of these derivatives of f up to order n minus 1 satisfy a certain growth estimate. Yeah, so there's a certain growth restriction, I would rather say, which says that what does this say? This says that um, this function cannot near infinity, yeah, for large values of t cannot grow. The rate of growth of this function is no of all these functions is no faster than that of the exponential function, right? And please note that the nth derivative of f is not assumed here to be of exponential order. That's not required. Okay. And then it turns out, and we actually proved it, that the Laplace transform of the nth derivative of f exists for all s bigger than alpha, and one can write down the Laplace transform of the nth derivative of f in terms of the Laplace transform of the function f, and the explicit formulae is here. Yeah, Laplace transform of the nth derivative of f is s to power n Laplace transform of f minus s to power n minus 1, f evaluated at 0, minus s to power n minus 2, the first derivative of f evaluated at 0, all the way till minus of n minus 1th derivative of f evaluated at 0. Yeah? So anytime we apply, we try to solve an initial value problem using the method of Laplace transform, one has to check that all the assumptions required in this corollary are being satisfied, right? So we actually discussed an example how Laplace transform can be used to solve a second order linear ordinary differential equation with constant coefficients, right? How do you do that? So let's just recall that the Laplace transform, let's call it L of y, of the unknown function y of which is the solution of the differential equation, is an algebraic equation rather than the differential equation, right? And so I would like to make this point that the method of Laplace transform can be applied in the same way to higher ordered equations, as long as we assume that the solution satisfies the conditions that this corollary demands, right, for appropriate values of n, right? So this is a general method. Okay, all right. And last time we also discussed this, that how is the Laplace transform of the integral of f related to the Laplace transform of the function f. Yeah? So what does this statement say? That suppose that f is piecewise continuous on the interval 0a for every a positive, and suppose that f is of exponential order alpha, then it turns out that the integral of f from 0 to t, this function, which is a function of the variable t, is also of exponential order. We saw this last time. And the Laplace transform of this function is given as the Laplace transform of f divided by s. Yeah? And this is true whenever s is at least as big as alpha. Right? So all of this was done last time. Are there any questions? I'll pause for a minute to take your questions. Any questions?
Ma'am, in the very first slide, you said when taking the inverse of inverse Laplace transform, you said that it is not always defined.
Correct, correct,
Yes.
correct. It's not
Why
all.
so?
See, inverse transform means what? See, what is that you would like to do if you want to define an inverse transform. So let me write that down. So see, one is looking at this function. F going to Laplace transform of f, correct, this function, right? And one wants to consider the inverse of this function. So when is the inverse defined for any general function? When is the inverse of a function defined? When can we talk about the inverse of a function?
When it is
When it is
what
invertible.
Correct. So I'm asking, when is a function
Bijection.
invertible? right? So the function has to be injective, right? You can restrict
Yes.
onto the range and talk about its inverse there, but the function has to be injective, right? Right? Correct? Yeah. So you need this property, right? That if f and g are such that the Laplace transform of f is same as the Laplace transform of g, then we must have f to be equal to g. Correct? In order to talk about the inverse, right? Isn't it? Is everybody with me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. But unfortunately, this is not true, right? See, remember, Laplace transform is a certain improper integral, right? So, for example, not true. Yeah. So, this is not true in general, right? Right. Why is this? Because, I can always do the following. Right. So, let me write that down. So, if f and g are only piecewise continuous, so what is that we know? So if f and g, so let me write this down, are only piecewise continuous, right? Which means that there are points of discontinuity, points of jump discontinuities, then they may differ at finitely many points of discontinuity. So let me recite one or more points of discontinuity, and yet have the same Laplace transform. Is that correct? That's because Laplace transform is defined as certain integrals, right? F and G may be same everywhere except at, let's say, finitely many points of discontinuity. Yet when you integrate F and G, you get the same output.
Yes, ma'am. Because
Yes?
integration does not depend upon points of discontinuity.
Yeah, so integration does not discriminate what are the values the functions f and g takes at finitely many points, let's say, right? On the other hand, what does the Lurch theorem tells us? The Lurch theorem says that if f and g are continuous functions with the same Laplace transform, then f and g must be identical. Yeah, so I will write this. So on the other hand, this is what we know thanks to Lurch's cancellation law, that if f and g are continuous functions, sorry, my handwriting is very, very poor, with the same Laplace transform, then the functions f and g are identical, correct? So it means that if you restrict to continuous functions, right, then you can talk about the inverse Laplace transform, but not always. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, is that okay? Everybody with me on this point? Yes, so one cannot talk about the inverse Laplace transform always, but under some special circumstances. Yes? Is that okay? Does it answer your question?
Yeah, ma'am, I
Yes.
wanted to ask one small thing.
Yes, yes, please.
Given a function, can we say that it is Laplace transform of something
So what are you saying? That given
or some random function?
given capital F, can you find little f such that capital F is Laplace transform of this function little f? Is that
Yeah.
always true?
No, ma'am, because we
Is that your question?
Yeah. Means is any given function a Laplace transform of something?
Um, we don't know as of now.
Yeah. So maybe we can include that also as a reason that all functions are not Laplace invertible.
See, that part is okay. You just restrict to the range of Laplace transform, So,
Okay.
for example, you want to look at a function t, let's say defined from v to w. So instead of looking at, and you want to consider its inverse, right? So if the function is 1, 1, you just look at the function t from V onto its image,
Okay.
right? And you can talk about
Right,
the
right, right.
inverse there. So that is not a major sort of hassle, right? But sort
Okay,
of
right.
injection is something that you cannot avoid, right? That is something indispensable, right? Yeah, is
Okay,
that
right.
okay? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But coming back to your question, we don't know the answer to this question as yet. Uh,
Okay.
so this is a question, right?
I had a doubt.
Yes, please go ahead.
Ma'am, can you go to the last slide of the last lecture?
Last slide of the last lecture, not today's lecture.
No, ma'am, like the slide you were showing right now.
Okay, right now. Okay. So, so last means this is it. Which one do you want to talk about?
No, I had.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry. Here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So here we said g is equal to integral 0 to t f of x dx.
Correct.
So I did not understand how this follows. Note that. So g, how is g of exponential order alpha?
See, this was discussed last time. How is g of exponential order alpha? Maybe I'll talk about it later in the class. Is that okay? Sort of later, meaning towards the end of the class. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, because we did discuss it last time. Yeah. I'll like to go ahead and I'll certainly take your question at 3:20 or so. Yeah, I'll try to stop well before time today. Yeah. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Anything else?
Ma'am, why does the Laplace transform works? Like, it makes a problem so easier, but why?
Why meaning I really don't know. Really, I really don't know. I think the genius of Laplace. I really don't know the answer to your question. Seriously, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, some magic is happening. Yeah, that much I can agree. Yeah. And I'll sort of, we will do some examples little later when we have acquired little more knowledge, so as to sort of convince you that Laplace transform, with using the method of Laplace transform, one can actually solve ODEs which we could not have solved by the method learned so far, right? But just bear with me for some time. Okay. So this is sort of a recall that the Laplace transform of the integral of 0 to t integral f is actually the Laplace transform of f by s, right? So if possible, one can write down the inverse Laplace transform, provided it makes sense. Okay. All right. So let's start an example. Yeah. So this is a kind of a question we were just pondering about, that given a function capital F, can you find a little f such that capital F is the Laplace transform of the given f? Can this always be done? At least for this example. Yeah? So the question here is to find a function little f such that the Laplace transform of this function is given as 1 upon s square multiplied by s square plus a square. Okay, all right. So let's see. What is that we know as far as this example is concerned, right? So let's recall this, right? We know that the Laplace transform of the function sine at by a is exactly 1 upon s square plus a square. Correct? Is that okay? Everybody agrees with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And now by the uniqueness property stated previously, meaning the Lorentz cancellation law, we know that no other function has the same transform besides the function sine at by a. Correct?
Yeah,
No
ma'am.
other.
Yes, ma'am. Provided it is continuous.
Correct. So that's what I said. No other continuous function will have the same Laplace transform. So that's why I'm writing here so this is all, in the world of continuous function, that the inverse Laplace transform of the function 1 upon s square plus a square is sine at by a. Okay. Now, so I'll introduce an s here, because I am sort of interested in finding a function f such that the Laplace transform of f is 1 upon s square plus e square. Now, why do I do this? Because I just learned the following, that, so I'm just using the formula in the previous slide, that given a function f of exponential order and piecewise smooth, then if you consider the integral of f from 0 to t and take the Laplace transform, that is given as the Laplace transform of the function little f divided by s, correct? And all I'm doing is I am taking the inverse Laplace transform, taking the liberty of taking the inverse Laplace transform, provided that I am working under the working with continuous functions. So is this okay? Everybody with me on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And you just compute the integral on the right hand side, right? So this part is okay, right? Now what do I need? I actually need a 1 upon s square here. So what do? I play this trick one more time, right? So I will have a s square, which means that I will have to integrate one more time, right? So I just integrate one more time. So what does it say? It says that this is the function that we were looking at. If we look at this function and compute its Laplace transform, we will exactly get this. Is that okay? Everybody with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay, all right.
Ma'am,
Yes, please.
why didn't we just do partial fractions?
One can also do that, but see, what will I get? So this is s square plus a square. So then what will I get? What will I
Uh,
get?
You could expand you can multiply and divide by a square, get a square in the numerator, then add and subtract s square.
Correct.
Maybe.
But you know, I would like linear terms in the denominator, right?
Linear terms as well.
See, what will I get? So how will you write the partial fraction decomposition of this? One can do that. There's no harm in this. So what will be the partial fraction decomposition of this function?
1 by a square times 1 by s square minus 1 by a square times 1 by s square plus a square.
Okay, and then how do you go ahead from that point?
We know the s square plus 1 by s square plus a square term, and then we take a.
Correct. That is also one way to do about it. Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I thought I'll just use what we have recently learned, but that's also perfectly correct.
Ma'am,
Yes,
but
yeah.
do we know the Laplace inverse Laplace transformation of 1 upon s square?
See, what is
Uh,
it? Yeah.
If you take the a times to 0 limit, then you can just
Yes,
end up with
Yes,
t.
yes. Correct. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Great. All right. Okay. So what is the next thing that we discussed here? We want to discuss here. So, you know, now what are we going to discuss? So we are differentiating the Laplace transform here. Yeah. So remember, little f is by assumption a piecewise continuous function on the interval 0a for every a positive, which means that, you know, that's exactly saying that it's piecewise continuous on the interval 0 to infinity. By assumption, little f is also of exponential order. Capital F, remember, denotes the Laplace transform of the function little f. And what is that I am doing here? Differentiating the Laplace transform, right? So what is this theorem saying? That differentiating the Laplace transform corresponding to multiplying the original function by minus t. Yeah, I'll repeat one more time. Differentiating the Laplace transform in S domain is equal to or corresponds to multiplying the original function in the t domain by minus t. Correct? Is that okay? See, all these sort of comes very handy when we are actually solving differential equations using Laplace transform, but one has to check that, you know, these things hold true. So let's see the proof, right? So remember, the Laplace transform is this improper integral 0 to infinity exponential minus st ft, right? And what am I doing here? I would like to differentiate this, right? So I would like to differentiate here. Now, what am I doing here? I am saying that it is legitimate to differentiate under the integral sign Please mute yourself. How do I do it? Yeah. Can you,
You should have seen the 10 centimeter long springs of
can you can you please mute yourself? Yeah, sorry for the disturbance. Yeah, let's get back. So is my screen visible to everybody?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Yeah, sorry for the disturbance. Okay, so what is that I'm saying? I'm saying that one can justify this differentiation under the integral sign. Hold on for that. Suppose that it is legitimate to differentiate under the integral sign, then what would you get? The right hand side would look at, so you are differentiating with respect to the s variable here. So which means that you will get minus of t exponential minus st ft, right? Which is exactly the negative of the Laplace transform of the function t times ft. Correct? Is that okay? Yes. So the trick here is how can one differentiate under the integral sign? Correct? Once that is justified, then the rest of the computation is routine. Is this okay with everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so how do you justify this differentiation under the integral sign? So this is a general theorem in a general setting. Let's see the result. So suppose that you have a function g of two variables defined on the rectangle AB times CD. Yeah, so this is at interval of AB. Endpoints AB and this interval CD, real valued function, and I am integrating the function g with respect to the variable x. So this is a function of two variables and we are integrating with respect to the variable x from a to b. So the output would be some function of the variable y. We are denoting it by capital F. And suppose that one can do this for each fixed y in the interval CD, right? So f exists as a function of y. Suppose that the partial of g with respect to y is also continuous on the same rectangle, then it is known that capital F is differentiable on the interval CD. So capital F is differentiable with respect to y variable, and one can write down the derivative of capital F with respect to y. This is obtained by integrating a to b. So the partial of g with respect to the y variable from a to b, right? So this is exactly what we are applying here. Is that okay? Does everybody see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Does that theorem demand that g is continuous? It doesn't demand g to be continuous. It demands that this integral of g from a to b, that should exist. The function f should exist, which may exist even without g being continuous.
I mean, G should be piecewise continuous though.
See, we want this integral to exist. Without piecewise continuity also it can exist.
Yeah. Sorry,
So it's a
yes,
Riemann integral, right?
yes.
Yeah. So is this okay? So I think so with this theorem, which is borrowed from Apostle's book, one is fine, right? Is that okay? Everybody, yeah, everybody with me on this point? Okay, all right. So the point to remember, the upshot of all of this discussion is that differentiating the Laplace transform corresponds to multiplying the original function in the two domain by minus t. Okay, great. All right. So let's use this knowledge to find out the inverse Laplace transform of these functions, right? So you have to find a function little f such that the Laplace transform of the function little f in case 1 is given as 1 upon s square plus beta square, some real number beta square whole square. So let's see what is that we know here. So what is remotely connected to this is the Laplace transform of the cosine beta t and the Laplace transform of the sine beta t, right? So Laplace transform of the cosine beta t is s by s square plus beta square, and the Laplace transform of sine beta t is beta by s square beta square. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I did not write here for what values of s is this true. I will edit that before I put this on Moodle.
S greater than 0, right?
Yeah, so but that should have been mentioned here, right? So that should have been mentioned here. Okay. So anyways, so by what we have learned recently, it says that if I want to consider the Laplace transform of t cosine beta t, then I will pick a negative sign, and this would be equivalent to differentiating the Laplace transform. Is that okay? Yes? Yeah, so we are using differentiating the Laplace transform is the same as multiplying the original function by minus of t. Yeah, so the minus sign instead of the left hand side appears on the right hand side, but that's okay, nothing changes. Correct? So let's just differentiate the right hand side with respect to s variable. What you get is s square minus beta square by s square plus beta square whole square. Okay. All right. And similarly, the Laplace transform of the function t sine beta t is given as minus of the derivative with respect to the s variable of beta by s square plus beta square. So this is um, 2s beta by s square plus beta square whole square, right? Okay. So this ensures that one of the following is sorted. Which one? Part 2 is sorted, right? So this says that if I push this 2 beta on the left hand side, then we have found our answer to point 2, to part 2, correct? So little f is t sine beta t by 2 beta. Then the Laplace transform of this function is exactly what is required in part 2. Correct? Is that okay?
Yeah.
1 and 3 still remain. So let's see. How do we do 1 and 3? Okay. So let's continue this, right? So this is what we had on the last slide. All right. So let's look at this function 1 upon s square plus beta square whole square. Yeah. So this means this is exactly the same as 1 upon s times the Laplace transform of t sine beta t by 2 beta, right? This is the using the very first equation on this slide. And we know what is this? This is exactly the Laplace transform of the function 0 to t. So this same function here, now, the variable of integration is being changed to x for sort of clarity. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. And which implies that we have found the inverse Laplace transform of this function also. This is same as the function here in the parenthesis. Okay, great. So only one part remains. And how do we fix that? So everybody with me up till this point?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Okay. So let's recall that the Laplace transform of t sine beta t by 2b, we found this to be s by s square plus beta square. So that if I multiply by s, what would I get? So this is s time the Laplace transform of this, which would mean what? Which would mean this is same as differentiating this function and then taking the Laplace transform, correct? Yeah, so this is Laplace transform of f prime, correct? This is s times the Laplace transform of the function f, right? This is what was discussed in the last lecture, not today. Today we just stated a corollary, which is higher order derivatives. Yeah. So nevertheless, what it means is that if we take the function d by dt of t sine beta t by 2 beta, I've left the differentiation for you. Then and take the Laplace transform, we would get s square by s square plus beta square whole square. Correct. So is that okay with everybody present here?
And
Yes.
we get this because the function t sine beta t by 2 beta is 0 at 0, right? If it wasn't true, that we couldn't have proceeded.
Correct. Yes. Okay. All right. All right. So what is that next? So we have differentiated the Laplace transform. The next natural thing to consider is if the Laplace transform can be integrated and things like that, right? So here is the result, right? So given a piecewise continuous function on the interval 0 to a for every a positive, suppose that we also assume that this piecewise continuous function little f is of exponential order. Top of it, moreover, we also assume that the limit of this function ft by t as t tends to 0 from the right exists, then what happens? Then, so capital F here is the Laplace transform of the function little f, right? So what are we doing? We are taking the Laplace transform of the function little f first and then integrating from s to infinity. This is saying this is the same as taking the Laplace transform of the function ft by t, right? So this theorem is saying that the integration of the transform uh, of a function ft corresponds to division of the original function by t. Integrating the transform of a function little f in t domain corresponds to taking the Laplace transform of the following function of the function g, which is the same as ft by t. Correct. So I'll say that one more time. I think I confused you. Integrating the transform of a function f corresponds to division of the original function by t. Right? Is this okay?
Yes.
Yeah, is the statement okay? So let's see. Let's start with the, yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Somebody had a question.
What is capital?
Capital F is the Laplace transform of the little function little f.
I think he lost his connectivity.
Sorry?
I think he lost his connectivity.
Okay, all right. So shall we go ahead or, okay. So everybody else is with me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Ma'am, what
Yes.
is this capital F?
Capital F is the Laplace transform of the function little f.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the notation that we are working with.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's start with the right hand side. So which means that let's take the Laplace transform of the function little f and then take the integral from s to infinity. Okay. Now, so what does it mean? So this is just the definition, right? So I have the improper integral 0 to infinity with respect to the t variable, exponential minus xt little ft. So this is with the integration with respect to t variable. This is exactly whatever is in the parenthesis is the Laplace transform of the function little f denoted by capital F, right? Okay. And now what do I want to do? I say that since the integrand of the integral of the first integral here does not depend on the integration variable of the second, which means the x, one can write the following as the iterated integral, right? So I can switch the order in which I integrate. I can integrate with respect to x first and t later. Nothing changes. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Now, all right. So I now integrate the inner integral with respect to the x variable, right? So, so nothing, f is a function of the variable t alone. So that is can be pulled out of the integral. So I am integrating exponential minus xt with respect to the x variable. So I will get exponential minus xt by minus t. And I need to take the account the limits of integration, which means that x equal to infinity is the upper limit and x equal to s is the lower limit. And you have you integrate the output with respect to dt, right? T variable. Okay. Now this is exactly exponential minus st ft by t dt. Is that correct? Is everybody with me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay, great. All right. So what is that I have get? So look at this. What is this that I have get? This is exponential minus st ft by t. This is exactly Laplace transform of the function ft by t by definition. Correct?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And that's it. We're done. Yeah. Is that okay? Yeah. So the point to remember is that integration of the transform is the same as taking the Laplace transform of the function g, where g is original function f divided by t. All right. So everybody with me up till now? Okay. Any questions? Okay. I'll take the silence as yes and go ahead. So let's take an example. Let's consider the function logarithm of 1 plus w square by s square. And the question is to find a function little f such that the Laplace transform of the little function little f is precisely logarithm of 1 plus w square by s square. Okay. What is that we know? We know something like 1 upon s square plus w square, right? So let's differentiate. Let's differentiate the given function so that it looks like something which we are sort of more tractable in terms of Laplace transform. So differentiate with respect to s variable the given function logarithm of 1 plus w square by s square. So what will it give us? It will give us 2w square by s. That's correct. Yeah, s square plus w square. Okay. Now, how do I write this? I am going to use the partial fraction decomposition and I'm going to write it as the following, right? Now, this looks like something familiar, right? This is, so 1 by s is the Laplace transform of the constant function 1, and s by s square plus w square is the Laplace transform of the function cosine wt. And then I am using the fact that the Laplace transform behaves linearly. So I can write down the left hand side as the Laplace transform of 2 minus 2 cosine wt. Correct? Is that okay? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now from this point, how do I find a function f whose Laplace transform is logarithm of 1 plus w square by s square? We will use the following fact that if I integrate the Laplace transform of this, then I would actually do the following. Is that okay? So this is saying that integrating the Laplace transform is equivalent to considering the Laplace transform of the function g, where g is the original function in the t domain, divided by t. Correct? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
got the answer.
yeah. Is that okay with everybody present here? See, this like too many formulas going back and forth, but it's sort of getting comfortable with these, right? You sort of spot the obvious and then modify. Yeah, that's what I would say. Is that okay? Yes, please.
This we could have also
There
done.
may be a negative sign.
Sorry.
This we could have also done by directly multiplying 2 minus 2 cos wt by t and dividing by t.
So if you multiply it and divide by t, then what do you do after that?
Ma'am, we can say 2 minus 2 cos wt upon t to be f. Then it becomes L f
Correct.
times t. And that is equal to d by ds of LF.
That's exactly what we are doing, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes.
Should there be a minus sign?
That is what I was saying, that both of the formulas are doing the same thing.
See, when you differentiate, then you pick a minus sign. I am integrating here, so I'm fine. No, I'm using this formula here. The one here, this one here. There's no minus sign here, right?
No,
So
ma'am. Right. While
No, not
differentiating
while
in the first
differentiate,
step.
oh, in the first step, okay. Let me just check. So you're saying here the first equality here.
Yeah, it will be minus 2 upon s plus 2s upon s square plus w square.
Okay, please check. Yeah, you may be right. Please check. If that's the case, I think you are okay. So 1 upon s square plus y square, and then please check. Yeah, it's a small computation. Yeah,
Uh,
any somebody else wanted to say something?
Ma'am, in the last step, that Laplace transform will be the function of s and not t, right?
Where here?
In the integration, s
Here
s yes,
the integrand.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. So see, it's so So, if this is confusing, what I would suggest is instead of t, you look at some other variable. Let's just put the variable y. Yeah. So you write it cosine wy dy.
That they both should be different. I mean,
Which one?
this the inside 2 minus 2 cos omega t, and then after it should be ds or something like that. I mean,
No. See, look at here. Look at what we are doing here. See, integral. So Laplace transform f of x dx and integrating from s to infinity. So I'm just using that here. See, x
Yeah.
is just a variable of integration.
So f is a function of x, and the small f is not a function of x, right? Small f is a function of t.
So let's see. Let me sort of understand what you're trying to say. Capital F is a function of x and small f is a function of t, right? And what is small f here? Small f here is 2 minus 2 cosine wt, correct? And
Yeah.
what is capital F here?
L of 2 minus 2 cosine wt.
Yes.
So
Yes. Okay.
there'll be some different concept and different variable of integration, right? Instead of t.
Okay, so let's just put x if you want that. And then you're saying that this should be, what is the point of contention here is that this variable should be different from this variable.
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. Let me think about it for a minute.
Like, ma'am, in
Yes,
the
please.
initial slides, we used to write it as L f of t, and then there would be some variable s outside. I think that notation would make this clear. Like, if we had like L f of t and
Evaluate it at s. So you have a s here.
yeah, like here, if you write x instead of s, then we can write dx or something, and it would make sense. Because
Yes.
we'll express the Laplace transform in terms of not t, right? We'll write it in terms of s or something.
Correct. So you want to say that over here I will have, let's say, s, right? Because on the
Yeah.
left hand side there is s. So then what happens?
But while integrating, we'll not write s because that will create confusion, and we'll use, let's say, x, like how we used in the previous slide, like f of x
Right.
dx.
Yeah.
So I think that will make it clear.
Yeah. But some students are still confused. Is this okay? Or there's a point of confusion?
So I think, ma'am, that the one we wrote, na, L of 2 minus 2 cos omega t, instead of t, we should have a s over there. And while integrating, we should integrate in the x domain so that the final answer comes in s. I think that would make sense.
Is it? Let me sort of try to incorporate your suggestions. Maybe, meaning taking is not possible. I don't want to sort of ruin all of that. So the suggestion is that let's have d by ds of logarithm of 1 plus w square by s square. Yeah, all of that is L of 2 minus 2 cosine wt and s. Is that correct? Is that what I should have?
Yes.
Yes. And then what do? You integrate on both the sides, right? With respect to which variable? So let me sort of use the same notation which I have on this slide. Sorry.
It was x.
It was x, right? So I have f of x, right, on the right hand side. Yeah. So so integral of s to infinity f of x dx is the Laplace transform of ft by t, so this is understood, this is evaluated at s, right? And now if you put 2 and 2 together, these two together, then how should I write so that there is clarity?
I think it can be like d by dx of ln of 1 plus omega w squared by x squared into whole into dx instead of f.
F of x must be written as L of 2 minus 2 cos omega x dx.
Just a minute. So this part is okay. So this is integral of s f of x. So I'm just writing it as it. And what is f? What is
L of 2 minus 2 cos omega s.
Omega t by t of x.
One student at a time, sorry. So I should write it as 2 of 2 minus t cos
Omega t by t.
I
There's
think
no,
it can
No,
be.
it should be 2 cos omega x, right?
right,
Maybe
there's no
T
t,
only.
there's
No,
no t
actually
here, no.
T by X.
Cos omega t at x.
X, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
there'll be another
Omega
bracket
T
with
at
X.
bracket X.
Is this okay, what I've written?
No, another bracket should be there.
Cos omega t at x, like we did at s on the left hand side.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Like L of f of s.
okay, all right. But t at, is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, is that okay? Is that a yes with everybody present here?
Yes.
Yeah, so I will make the appropriate changes on the slides before I put them on Moodle, right? Is that okay? Yeah, see, at the moment, I don't want to sort of open the text file and do some harakiri here. Yeah. So, all right, right? So everybody understands sort of the whole point of, going back and forth with differentiation and integrals of transforms and things like that. Okay. All right. All right. I'm glad this is sorted. Okay. So far, what have we seen? We have seen the Laplace transform of the derivative of f in terms of the function Laplace transform of f, the Laplace transform of the integral of the function f in terms of the function f, Laplace transform of the function f. Then we have considered the derivative of the Laplace transform of f, and we have also considered the integral of the Laplace transform of f. That's the last thing that we did, right? Now, we saw some examples to see how they are useful in computing the inverse Laplace transform of certain functions. Now, let's look at the following scenario. Yeah, so we have a Laplace transform. We have two functions, f and g. You compute the Laplace transform of f and g, take their product, and now you want to consider the inverse Laplace transform of this. Yeah. So unfortunately, this is not fg. This turns out to be f convolved with g. Yeah. So this star is the convolution operation. And how do we define this and how do we sort of make this precise is what follows next. Okay. So given two functions f and g, this is a rather general sort of definition which has nothing to do with Laplace transforms per se. The convolution f convolved with g at t is defined as this integral. So I am integrating with respect to the variable x, f of t minus x gx integral from 0 to t. Okay, all right. So various things. So what if, instead of writing f first, if I write g first, then how does it change, right? So the nice part about it is that f convolved with g is same as the convolution of g with f, right? That's the first thing. So one can check this. This is easy. This follows by introducing a change of variables, right? Over here, you introduce a new variable y as t minus x and do this change of variable. The right hand side in terms of the variable y would be exactly g convolved with f, right? I will leave this for you to check. The next part is that this operation of convolution distributes over addition. So f convolved with the function g1 plus g2 is same as taking the convolution of f with g1 and taking the convolution of f with g2 and summing them up. Right? So these are easy checks, routine. So this operation of convolution is associative. F convolved with g and taking the convolution with h would yield the same output if I do the convolution of g and h first and then convolve with f. Okay. Now f convolved with 0 is 0 convolved with f is 0. So what is 0 here? What does 0 denote? 0 denotes the function which has constant function 0, which has value 0 for every value of t, right? And you'd also like to consider the function 1, yeah, the constant function 1, which has value 1. So unfortunately, the convolution of f with 1 may not be the function f, right? So one can see a simple example. If you take f to be sine t, then f convolved with 1 is, so let me just write that down if that clarifies. Right. So what am I saying? So let's take f to be this example. F is sine t and I am considering f convolved with 1. Okay, f convolved with 1. So this is by definition a certain integral, right? So this is an integral from 0 to t, and what is it? Or let me take sine. Let me take cosine rather than sine. Let me take cosine. Okay, so what is this? This is cosine t minus x dx, correct? Is that okay? So what will you get? You will get minus of c, right? And where x equal to t and x equal to 0, correct? And what will you get? You'll get minus sine 0 plus sine t, correct? So this is sine t, which is not same as f, right? And similarly, right? So this example is okay with everybody, right? Is that okay? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Very simple example. Okay. Similarly, f convolved with f itself may not be always non-negative and things like that. Okay. Now, what is that we would like to do is how this operation of convolution is related to the theory of Laplace transforms. So suppose that Laplace transform of f and the Laplace transform of the function g exists for all s bigger than a, right? And I want to consider the Laplace transform of the function f times the Laplace transform of the function g. Now this theorem is saying this is the same as taking the Laplace transform of the function f convolved with g, and this is true for all values of s bigger than a, right? So this actually comes very useful in application, and we will see in a minute how this is useful. But let's fix the proof of this theorem first. Okay, so let's look at the right hand side. So we are going to write down two improper integrals and take their product, right? So the variable of integration in the first integral is x. The variable of integration in the second integral is y, and one is taking the product, right? And I am going to write it as following, right? What is that I am saying? How can I write it following? How do I justify this equation? So I say the following. Since the integrand of the first integral, which means that exponential minus sx fx, does not depend on the variable of integration of the second. Yeah, so the integrand in the first integral does not depend on the variable y. One can write down the iterated integral, correct? Is that okay? Yes. Yes. Okay, so let's just do that now. So now what do I do? So I'm going to take this exponential minus sy here, and I'm going to write it this following. Yeah, nothing changes, right? So this is fine. So just reiterate. So this is the last equation on the previous slide, reproduced here as it is. Now this integral here can be put in a more convenient form by introducing a new variable, a change of variable. So I'm going to write t as x plus y for fixed y, right? So which means that dx is dt. So if I put this change of variable here, what will I get? I will get the integral as, so x was varying from 0 to infinity, t will vary from y to infinity. I will have an exponential minus st f of t minus y dt, correct? Is that okay? Yeah, x equal to 0 corresponds to t equal to y, and x equal to infinity corresponds to t equal to infinity, right? So the integral with respect to x is transformed with respect to t, right? Okay, and now what am I doing here? So this looks rather mysterious, right? Right? So let me write this down. So let me write this down, maybe it helps. So I had a certain integral, and so the integral was so x plus y was t, and the integral was with respect to the variable x, right? X equal to 0 to x infinity. What was the integral? Let me just borrow from the slide. So this is exponential minus sx plus y fx. Right, all of it, and take the integral with respect to y variable from 0 to infinity. Correct? Okay. So, and I'm introducing this change of variable t, and I am writing it as following. Yeah, 0 to gt, and x equal to 0 corresponds to t equal to y, and x equal to infinity corresponds to this exponential minus st f of t minus y dt. Is that correct? Yeah, no mistakes here, right? Right. Now, what does this denote? This region in ty space, what does this denote? So, if this is the t-axis and this is the y-axis, what am I going to look at? I am going to look at t equal to y, right? Right? And what is this? T is varying from y to infinity, right? So which means that this, I'm integrating over this wedge shaped region, correct? Is that correct? Is everybody with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And
Yes.
now,
Yes, ma'am.
whatever I'm doing, I am writing, instead of, I am describing this wedge shaped region in a different manner, and that's what I have on the slide, right? So I am writing this from, so, so instead of writing, what is it? So instead of writing with respect to t variable, now I am saying this will vary from y equal to 0 to y equal to t. That's all. So assuming that the order of integration can be reversed, I am now going to integrate with respect to y variable first and t variable later, and take the limits from y equal to 0. Y equal to 0 to y equal to t, right? That's exactly what I have on this slide. Is that okay? Does everybody follow this? So I take this gy inside, exponential minus st outside. Y will vary from y equal to 0 to y equal to t, and t will vary from 0 to infinity. Is that okay? Another description of the same wedge shaped region. Yeah, this is, I think, what you have been doing in MA 111. Correct? Everybody with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay, great. All right.
Ma'am,
Yes.
I mean, the gy can be taken inside the second integral.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm saying assuming the order of integration can be reversed. Yeah. And why can that be reversed?
Ma'am, they are independent t and y. Ma'am, but we took t as x plus y where y is a constant. So
Right. So something for you to think about. Please think about this. This is something that you have done in MA 111. Please think about it. And if you don't get it, we can always take it up in the discussion center. I want to sort of you to spend some 2 minutes on it. Right?
okay, ma'am.
Yeah, is that okay? Please think about it. Any confusion, we will certainly take it up. But spend some time on it.
Ma'am, what is the question? Can you please repeat again?
How do you justify this equality from the second equation to the third equation? How do you justify that? So I am sort of reversing the order of integration, right? Instead of integrating with respect to t here and y later, I am integrating with respect to y first and t later. Why can one do that? Is that okay? The question is clear? Is that okay? Everybody with me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now the advantage of writing this is that the function in inner parenthesis is exactly f convolved with g, which means that this improper integral that we get is exactly the Laplace transform of the function f convolved with g, right? So we are quite
Ma'am,
done. Yes, please.
I was just thinking about the question. So there are no discontinuities for either of the integrations, right? So we can just reverse, we can just interchange their order. That's allowed by theorem, right?
See, f and g are functions such that the Laplace transforms of f and g exist.
Huh.
So there is no statement about continuity or discontinuity of f and g.
But even if they're, oh, okay, yes.
Yeah, so think about it a little bit.
Huh.
Yeah, and yeah. So any questions? We can certainly discuss them, but please think about for some time. Yeah, because this is what you have been doing in your calculus course. Okay. So if you believe that this integration, the order of integration here can be reversed, then the Laplace transform of the function f convolution g is precisely the product of the Laplace transforms of f and g. All right. So I am more interested in actually taking up an example here, which will sort of clarify many things. Yeah. So we have done this example in the today's lecture, but let me sort of demonstrate another way of looking at it. Yeah. So given this function a by s square plus a square, we need to find a function little f such that the Laplace transform little f is this given function. Okay. So this is exactly what somebody was suggesting, but that was, using partial fraction decomposition. And now I'm going to use the fact that I'm going to write the function h as product of the Laplace transforms for two distinct functions. So I remember that we have computed this, right? The Laplace transform of the function t is 1 by s square, and the Laplace transform of the function sine at is a by s square plus a square, which means that the function h is precisely the product of Laplace transform of t and the Laplace transform sine of at. By what we have just discussed, the product of the Laplace transform of t and the Laplace transform sine at is precisely the Laplace transform of the function t convolved with sine at. So this is saying that if you look at the function t convolved with sine at and take the Laplace transform, then you would get the required function h, right? Is that okay? Very neat. Everybody with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. All right. And one can write down what is this function precisely. Okay. All right. Let's use this information to solve an initial Pauli problem after a long time, right? So g, the forcing function here, we don't know actually. Yeah, this is not given to us explicitly. However, we are required to solve this initial value problem, second order linear non-homogeneous differential equation with constant coefficients. All right. So let's use the method of Laplace transforms. So I'm going to assume that the solution y of this initial value problem satisfies the hypothesis of the corollary that we discussed in the beginning of the class today, which means the function y and the first derivative of y is of exponential order, and the second derivative of y is piecewise continuous, right? And then one can take Laplace transform. So, and use the fact that the Laplace transform is a linear function. So the Laplace transform of the second derivative of y plus 4 times the Laplace transform of y is going to be the Laplace transform of the forcing function g, which I am going to denote as by capital G. Now I'm going to write down the Laplace transform of the second derivative of y in terms of the Laplace transform of y. So I'm going to say that the Laplace transform of the second derivative of y is s square the Laplace transform of y minus s times y evaluated at 0 minus the derivative of y evaluated at 0. So this is, all of this is just the Laplace transform of the second derivative of y, and rest of it as it is, right? And so what is that we have? The Laplace transform of y is gs plus 3s minus 1 by s square plus 4, right? Okay, all right. Now what do we do? I use the method of partial fraction decomposition, right? So what did I have? I had gs plus 3s minus 1 by s square plus 4, that is written as it is here. And now I am going to use the following fact. Yeah, I'm going to split this right hand side into functions for which the Laplace transform to me is known. Okay, so I'm going to write down this as 3s by s square plus 4, and I'm going to write this term as 2s square plus 4, so which means that I will have to divide by 1 by 2, and the last term I'm going to write it as a product 2 by s square plus 4 times g, which means that I need to divide by 1 by 2, so to multiply by 1 by 2. Correct? Now, why do I do this? Because I know that s by s square plus 4 is precisely the Laplace transform of the function cosine 2t, and s by 2 by s square plus 4 is precisely the Laplace transform of the function sine 2t, and this one is, I'm going to write it as the product of the Laplace transform of the function Laplace transform sine 2t times the Laplace transform of the function little g. Yeah, remember little g was the forcing function in the non-homogeneous differential equation. Okay, is this okay? Everybody with me up till now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to use the fact that we just learned that the product of Laplace transform is same as taking Laplace transform of the convolution function. So I'm going to replace this term here, the product of Laplace transform of sine 2t by with Laplace transform of g by Laplace transform of sine 2t convolved with g, and then use the fact that Laplace transform is a linear function to write down this as Laplace transform of 3 cosine 2t minus Laplace transform. So this is going to be, the right hand side is going to be the Laplace transform of 3 cosine 2t minus 1 by 2 sine 2t plus 1 by 2 sine 2t convolved with g, right? And then, you know, we will assume that we are working in the condition where one can take the inverse Laplace transform, that is apply Lorentz cancellation law to say that y must be the same as 3 cosine 2t minus 1 by 2 sine 2t plus 1 by 2, you know, so this is what I have written here is precisely sine 2t convolved with the function g, right? So is this okay with everybody present here?
Yes.
Yes. So for example, you know, this question we could not have solved without the method of Laplace transforms. This cannot be solved using what we have learned. See, method of undetermined coefficients certainly does not apply, and even the method of variation parameters, this would going to be much faster. Yeah. Because we precisely don't know, you know, if G is continuous or not to be able to apply the method of variation of parameters. So is this okay with everybody present here?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So shall we go ahead then, if this is okay? All right. All right. So the next thing that we want to talk about is that how do we use Laplace transform to actually piecewise continuous functions, right? So I'm going to look at non-homogeneous functions where the forcing function, the right hand side function, is actually a piecewise continuous function. Okay? So we'll start with a very basic function. Let's start with the step function. What is this step function? So so fix some c, a positive real number. So this function takes the value 0 if t is less than c, and this is 1 everywhere to the right of c. So this is the step function, also called as the Heaviside function. So this is going to be denoted by u subscript c, right? Okay. Now let's see. So this is a piecewise continuous function, and let's see. So suppose I have another piecewise continuous function given as follows, right? So this function takes the value t on the interval 0 to 4, open 4. On the closed interval 4, open 7, takes the value 5, minus 1 on 7 to 9, close 7, open 9. And everywhere to the right of 9, this function takes the value 1. Now let's write down this function f in terms of the step function. Okay, you know, very easy to sort of do this once you sort of draw the pictures, right? Draw the graph. Okay, or analytically, you know, note this down. So So this is the step function UC and this is the step function UD. Note that UC minus UD takes 1 on the interval close C open D and 0 everywhere else. Correct? Is that okay? Right? Very small observation. Which means that one can write down the given function f as follows. Yeah. So you write down this as 2 times u0 minus u4 plus 5 times u4 minus u7 minus 1 times u7 minus u9 plus u9. Correct? And that's all. Is that okay? Everybody with me up till this point?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, see, why am I doing this? It will be sort of easier when we have to compute the Laplace transform of the function f. But let's see. Yeah. So let's first compute the Laplace transform of the step function, right? The unit step function, which is a piecewise continuous function of exponential order. No problem. Okay. So let's compute the Laplace transform. By definition, this is the improper integral 0 to infinity exponential minus st uct dt. The variable of integration here is t. Now the step function takes the value 1 everywhere to the right of c and is 0 everywhere, is 0 everywhere else. So which means that this integral can be reduced to taking integral over c to infinity, right? Which is exponential minus cs by s, right? And this is true whenever s is positive, right? We need that information here, right? Okay, so having written down the Laplace transform of the unit step function, now you can write down the Laplace transform of the function which I had on the previous slide, right? Okay, now let's see the following. Okay, so let's consider the following function. Now, what is this function doing it for us? What does the function g achieve for us? This is a question to you. One can draw and check, right?
It's basically shifting the thing, right? It's basically
Right. So it's a translation, right?
Yeah.
So g represents, so if g represents a translation of f at a distance c in the positive t direction, right? So this is looks rather fancy but very sort of simple to see, right? So what is, so this is so this is the t variable, and suppose this is f of 0, and suppose it looks like this, then what does g do, right? So g would do the following. So this is t, and let's say this point is c. So g would be do a different ink. So g is this, and then it'll be right. Is that correct? This is the graph of g, right? Is that okay? Yeah, so this g represents a translation of f at a distance c in the positive t direction, right? Okay, all right. Now, why do I suddenly bring it in? So, in terms of the unit step function, one can write down g as the product of the function f t minus c with the unit step function. Okay, all right. So with this information, what is that we want to do? Let's see. Suppose that capital F is the Laplace transform of a function little f, valid for s bigger than a, and suppose that c is some fixed positive real number, right? Now let's look at the following function. So this is the step function uc multiplied by ft minus c. So this is precisely the function g that we had on the previous slide. So g represents a translation. I'll repeat for at the sake of repetition. G represents a translation of the function f at a distance c in the positive t direction, right? And one can write down the Laplace transform of this function. This is going to be the Laplace transform of the given function f multiplied by exponential minus cs, right? And this is true whenever S is bigger than A, right? So all of this, may seem like a lot of formulas going on, but they come actually very useful when you are solving problems using Laplace transforms. Yeah. So let's see how do we justify this theorem here. So let's start with the left hand side. Yeah. So the Laplace transform of the product of these two functions, one of them being the step function UC. All right. So this is by definition this improper integral exponential minus st uct ft minus c, the variable of integration being the t variable. Okay, now having this step function says what? Step function says that the step function is takes the value 1 to the right of c and is 0 everywhere else, which means that this is same as the improper integral c to infinity exponential minus st f of t minus c. All right. And I'm going to introduce the change of variable. I'm going to write down t minus c as a new variable u, which means that this becomes exponential minus of su plus c fu du. Now, what does this tell you? This is precisely, I can pull out exponential minus cs out of the integral because it's independent of u, and what remains inside is precisely the Laplace transform of the function f, correct? And that's it, we are done. Is that okay? Is that okay with everybody present here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. All right. All right. So let's just do this very simple example and then perhaps we'll stop, right? So I have an honest piecewise continuous function here and with a discontinuity, and let's compute a Laplace transform of this function, right? So how do you do this, right? One way is the following. One way is that I introduce the unit step function here, and I am going to write down f as sine t plus the step function u pi by 4 times cosine t minus pi by 4. Is that correct? Everybody with me on this? Yes. So this will give you the required function f. And now I can take the Laplace transform, right? So this would be the Laplace transform of the sine function plus the Laplace transform of the second function here. Now Laplace transform of the sine function is something that we know. This is 1 upon s square plus 1. And the second term we just calculated. This is exponential minus cs. C here is pi by 4. And the Laplace transform of this function cosine t as it is. So this is s by s square plus 1. And we are done. Yes, is that okay? Everybody with me up till this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yeah, so I'll just stop the recording now. Any questions, then